We get it. It's all around us. It's in our friend groups, in TV, music, movies. I mean, you even go to the zoo and animals are coupling up.
Yeah.
And so...
See the gorillas over there snuggling with each other. You're like, this gorilla's got a boo.
I just want a boo too. Hi, welcome to Marriage Takes 3.
We're back.
Yeah.
Told you we'd be back.
You can't stop us. We're just going to keep making these forever. And there's nothing you can do about it. We're so
They
weird.
could not watch.
They could. But it's not going to stop us from producing
Still not
them.
going to stop us.
Yeah, we're weird. But yeah, I'm Gabrielle.
I'm Richard.
And I've already said it's Marriage Takes 3, so.
But it's Marriage Takes 3.
Yeah.
Welcome.
In case you forgot.
Marriage Takes 3.
If you're new here, cool. If you're old here,
Sorry.
you're Richard.
You're rich. I'm gonna choose a letter in this moment.
That's good.
So today, on Marriage Takes 3, in case you wonder what you're paying attention to, and if you're still sticking around for some reason after all that,
Yeah.
we're talking about something that if you grew up in Christian culture, if you've been in Christian culture for a little bit of time, it's kind of a running joke of, why Christians get married so fast. Yeah. So stinking fast.
I mean, it's Monday first date, Wednesday second date, Saturday wedding.
Engaged. Yeah. What, you didn't get engaged anyway? Just went straight to the wedding?
You got engaged on the
2
second
dates
date.
and the wedding. Wow, that's not how we went. Or what do they say if you went in seminary school?
Yeah, if you go to like a Christian college or seminary, it's ring by spring.
Yeah.
And they really mean it for like your freshman year.
Yeah.
Like, it's not your senior year. It's your freshman year, ring by spring.
It's a joke, but it's kind of real.
Yeah.
And I mean, people make memes about it, make jokes about it, and it's because, and people do it because it's a real thing, right?
Yeah,
like,
it does happen.
We got married fairly quickly, I think, especially compared to culture, right? I think compared to the norm. We have friends we know that have gotten engaged and married pretty quickly.
How quickly did we, so they know. How quickly did we get engaged and then married?
Yeah, so engaged within 10, we'll go by calendar months, within 11 months, but dating was, 5 months of dating?
Yeah.
Because we told our story, we had our 5-month gap.
Yeah.
And then married was 6 months, 5.5 months? Yeah.
So relationship in total, I think, was about...
It's less than a year.
Less than a year.
All total
you take
time
about
dating
5-ish
to
months
marriage.
Total dating, 5-ish months engaged, about 10 to 11 months.
Yeah,
period.
that's really quickly for the world, right? So most people, it's
only a year and 5 months.
That's like an
after
engagement time. Most people are engaged that period of time.
I know,
right? At least, if not even longer than that. And I think there's the good things too. And I think there's also there can be within that culture there can be some negative to it, right? I think I've read articles and stuff, especially people who are like at these who are younger, who are at Christian colleges or at seminary and it's their senior year, and they kind of rush into a marriage because they think they need to be married by the time that they graduate from there. Because they've seen so many people get engaged and get married in that time, it starts weighing on them. So what's the deal with that, right? Is it because of our belief and our values in the Bible? Is it because what the Bible says about sex within Christians, right? Is it that they're burning with desire and lust, as Paul would put it, that they need to get married? What's the desire to get married so fast? I would say sort of part of it, right? Like I think there is part of those values. There's part of what what the Bible talks about marriage, what the Bible talks about sexual morality, those different things, and it's less about the act itself, but when your relationship is built from a foundational standpoint, not on in a physical nature, and it's built on God's word, right?
Yeah.
It's built on Him, and it's built on deep conversation, right? It's built on understanding someone from that standpoint. When that's kind of your go-to. I even think when we were dating, there was a lot of questions. There was a lot of just like what if, or even deep conversations. We even had a tabletop topic game that was like, if you could do this, if you can go anywhere in the world, where would you go? Do you want to have kids? How many kids do you want to have? How would you raise your kids? So it was just these deep conversations that sometimes you don't always think of, and you build it on things such as like intellect and humor. You get to know someone's
Yeah.
humor. You get to know, and that is your foundation, or build on that foundation of God's word and God, and it becomes just more strong. So you really know a person, you know, pretty quickly of who they are, and if you're compatible, and like what that's like.
Well, I know, like in our early date, really throughout all of our dating, but especially in our early dating, it was like, you know, sometimes we'd put a movie on, but we kept pausing it to talk, and you know, we'd spend 3 or 4 hours just nonstop talking. Like, so it wasn't filled with like activities or TV. I mean, it's not like we avoided those things. It just, we were drawn to having those conversations. And maybe like not every Christian relationship is like that, but I do think that when you take the physical out of it and you are intentional, that's a lot of times what a relationship can look like, is just constant conversation. So I remember 3 weeks into dating, it felt like we had been dating for 3 years because we just knew so much about each other at that point. Because it was, I mean, 3 weeks, that was probably, I don't know, like 100 hours worth of talking in that 3 weeks. It was crazy.
Yeah, and I think, and again, now someone could be the advocate on the other side and go, well, you could fill that with other time, right? Maybe people, that's all they do is just watch TV. All they do is watch Netflix and don't have that, and you're still not building on a foundation. So it really does go to being intentional, right? I think we were very intentional with our time, and the Bible calls us to be intentional in a lot of different ways. But we were very intentional with our time, with our conversations. Yeah, I mean, we put on plenty of times. I think we ended up just putting on like some random,
like Friends, so we didn't really have to pay attention to it because we've seen it a million times.
Yeah, or we play like some type of easy game, or a lot of times we would just, you know, go to coffee shops, or even I know my one part we'd go to like the events or the little center.
The office center.
Sure, there's a name for it. I can't think of it, but it's okay. Yeah, so we'd go there and just kind of like hang out. We used to joke around and say like that was our living room, right? Like our couch. We'd just hang out in there too. And that was good for us. We try to do that. We didn't do it all the time, but we tried to do that too, because that was like, it was boundaries. You're going to hold yourself accountable because anyone could walk in, right? So it's that accountability that if anything were to go any which way, right? Like, and you don't have that intention, but again, as humans, sometimes you don't have the intention, and things
just
could
don't,
happen.
Just
it's
don't
just
trust
putting
yourself.
Don't trust yourself.
I know you really trust yourself, but don't.
It's focusing on the heart, the mind, and even the flaws of the other person, right? I mean, I think that's not a bad thing. I think it's just understanding who that person is and everything that they are. So it's just being intentional. And maybe not everybody's chatty Cathys like we are.
Yeah.
But be intentional. Like, again, I don't know. I'll get the name and I'll put it in the post, or I'll link it in the description of the YouTube video and the notes for the podcast, of the name of the games we had, because one was just a general one, and one was an actual relationship one. But even if you're not someone who talks a lot, just have something like that. Have something that kind of you can pull up topics, and maybe you just do a couple every night. Let's go to the Bible.
Yeah, what's our core scripture?
I'm not going to read it upside down in a Greek today.
Okay.
So the core scripture today is going to be 1 Corinthians 7, 1 through 2.
Oh, nice.
So if you want to turn there on your phone or in the pages, or just listen. I'm
yeah,
tell
either
you,
way.
And I'll put it on the screen if you're watching. Now concerning the matters about which you wrote, it is good for a man not to have sexual relations with a woman, but because of the temptation to sexual immorality, each man should have his own wife, and each woman her own husband. So this, so kind of in context, this is Paul's first, well, actually it's technically a second letter to Corinthians, so a little Bible knowledge. There was actually, and he talks about it in there, he wrote a letter and it got lost. It doesn't exist. No one has it. And it may be out there.
I really want to know what it says.
It may be out there.
Maybe we'll find it.
They talk a little bit about it in 1 and 2 Corinthians. There's like, he kind of references back to like what he brought up in that original letter, but that'd be cool if they found it one day.
That would be so cool. Somebody has it.
Yeah.
Who has it?
So anyway, but his first letter that's in the Bible. So to Corinthians, he's they're talking about. So they asked him a bunch of questions, right? They had sent him a letter or sent him questions, and so the first part's him just kind of talking to them, and then he starts going into answering these questions, and so now they're talking about the question. Obviously, is it good for a man to have sexual relations with a woman? And for his mind, he was saying, and especially in Greek, because it was a very promiscuous in Greece at that time, And especially in Corinth, it was very promiscuous. There was a lot of sexual morality. There's a lot of stuff going on in the world. Hey, welcome to 2020.
Yeah.
Looks no different 2,000 years later, right?
Yep.
So he's saying because you have this temptation of this desire to want to, then it's good for you. You can have your own wife, and you can have your own husband. So we talk about how it is good, right? We do have those temptations, we do have those desires, and some of us don't, right? And I think that's okay. Like Paul didn't get married, and I was reading something that say like he might have even been married at some point. Maybe his wife passed away. We don't know, but him being in the Sanhedrin and being that, they were saying what qualifies for that. So I thought that was interesting.
I have heard that before
that they think
too.
Paul was married at some point, but even though we don't really have any knowledge of, she might have died, something might have happened.
Well, not what you're saying is because of like before he had his encounter with Christ and he was just a Pharisee, like a person in his position would almost always be married. Yeah. It was so I've heard that
very
before.
Common. Yeah, and it would be very, very, very uncommon. I say it was impossible, but very uncommon that he wouldn't have had a wife in that position. He never got married. He talked about not being married, and he even talked about in his letter to Corinth, especially at that time and whatever was going on in the city or in politics of like there's a lot going on right now, especially within this growing church. Like he desired for people not to get married because you can give more to Christ, and it really is true, right? Like if we weren't married, the time we spend together, the conversation we have, like if we took all that and put it to our pursuit to Christ, of course.
Yeah.
Like, so there is that, but he was saying like it's not a bad thing, right? He even said this isn't a commandment, right? To not do that. I just think it's better because this is the life I'm living, and not because I'm living it, because I know what I get out of it, right?
Yeah.
Because I know what I can spend my time. So for us, why did we get married so quickly?
I think it just got to this place where I had been through quite a bit, and certainly went about this relationship much differently than any other relationship. And I think it was just really evident, really clear that you were the type of person I'd want to be my husband. You had all the qualities. And I think that was super clear because of our lengthy conversations. Like we got to know each other so fast because of all of that. And I think just once you kind of realize like, okay, this is somebody I could spend the rest of my life with, you just don't want to wait. And I think like maybe we live in a culture where because divorce is so prevalent and because a lot of people are so narcissistic and self-centered, and I don't mean that in like a mean jab way. I mean like that's actually a problem. Like this, we're the probably the most selfish generation that's ever existed, and
there's been a lot of selfish generations, but
we're up there.
We're up there.
Yeah,
sure, if not the
it's
most.
all about like self-love, self-admiration, like and certainly I wouldn't want someone not to love themselves, but like it, it's just it's more about yourself. And so I think people get into this place of like wanting to wait. They think there's some sort of like timestamp that if they wait so long, they test a relationship so long that it's going to be the right. They'll know for sure it's the right relationship. And I think there's also we live in a culture that thinks like you should definitely live together before getting married so that you can figure out if they're the right person. And I'm like,
test drive that relationship.
Yeah. Like before I buy this car, I want to test drive it. I'm like, you're test driving a marriage. That just doesn't.
I wish I had looked this up, and I know we've talked about it, I think, previously, but I don't think we went over it. I'm trying to remember if we went over this stat specifically, but I know for sure it's at least equal, but I believe people who live together if they got married, the divorce rates are actually higher. I know it's at least equal to people who didn't.
I have heard these same stats. We're going to find the sources to those stats.
Because I believe it's higher.
We don't like to quote things that...
I believe it's higher, but I'm 99% sure it's at least the same. Like it's no different. Like they still get divorced at the same rate.
Oh, yeah.
But I want to say it was higher than people who didn't live together before they got married. But we're going to look that up, and we'll post that as well.
So, I mean, it's a combination of many things. I think we're just a little bit later in life, so we weren't as worried about waiting, and we were ready. Certainly, just maturity-wise, I think we were ready. I just knew that I wanted to marry you, and it just like didn't, And yeah, the physical does come into play. Like you're not being physical. You're like, I just want to get married already. Like it's a combination of everything. If that's your only reason that you're getting married, is like, because you just really want to be physical with somebody, please don't get married. Like there needs to be so much more than that.
Yeah,
but
that'll change. Not I'm not saying change like in a bad way. Like
it just can't be the foundation of your marriage.
Yeah, no, it's not a good thing. Yeah. I mean, I won't go into a lot because I think it's a lot of the same stuff, and I try not to regurgitate it. But I think we talked about last week on baggage, where we talked about like dealing with that stuff before you going into a marriage. I think that was a lot of, were you laughing at the way I said that? I said that kind of weird, didn't I? But yeah, so I think that was a lot. We both had really been intentional at dealing with a lot of the stuff we have dealt with, and we haven't dealt with necessarily maybe in relationships or our past before we got into marriage. We both set boundaries. We both really kind of like submitted that to God completely, and whole, not even just that, but everything, ourselves to Him. So I think there was like that. We went into it differently with that different mindset, and like you said, I think once you get to that mindset of you know, right? Like you love that person, you want to spend the rest of your life with that person, you want to serve God with that person, you want to serve that person, then there was just that mindset of like, what's the point of waiting? Like what are you waiting for, right? Like are you waiting to see if it's like, because we do that as humans, right? We don't celebrate things in a sense because we're always just waiting for the other foot to drop, right? Shoe to drop. Shoe to drop.
If your foot drops,
it's a weird.
So falls off.
Yeah, if your feet are falling off, you might want to see a doctor. You're in trouble. But yeah, so I mean, I think it was kind of like, what are you waiting for? And I think that is a lot of time unconsciously, maybe even, that we're just like some people are just kind of waiting to see like, is this gonna go bad? Is this
waiting to see if they're gonna disappoint
It's happened
them
in the past, right? Because obviously, if you're in a relationship, if you've been in previous relationships, clearly they didn't work out, right? For whatever reason, but more times than not, there's probably not always a great reason why it didn't work out. So I think we're really, so for us, it was just kind of like, why wait, right? We were already new. We were already in that position. And again, we've talked about our story, so I won't go into the super details, but like, it was just like these crazy things that happened from it, right? For like us spending 5 months apart to really work on those things, us deciding to go to India separately to really pursue God in the atmosphere, getting back together, and then like I went through like some spiritual warfare for about a month early on in us dating again, and like you stood by my side, and I stood, right? Like I think we even had conversations about potentially ending it, and I just knew that if I ended it, there's no way we would get back together, because I just didn't want to play that game of getting, breaking up and getting back together or taking breaks.
I wouldn't have tolerated it.
I know you wouldn't have, but I was like, I
knew, you break up with me again, no.
Well, we didn't have that conversation, but like I knew that wasn't like, I knew if I did, I had to be a reason, like it had to be a solid enough reason to know we would never get back together, and it just never felt that. Like I knew it wasn't that. So it was like I was able to face that as well, of going like I was dealing with whatever I was able to. You stood on my side, and then going, for us going to India and pursuing that, but a lot of those conversations in between. So it was just, the conversations I think that we had, and just seeing the growth in each other, and I think that was a big part of it. But should everyone get married as quickly as we did, or as quickly as?
Probably not.
Yeah, I think it just depends.
Yeah.
I mean, I really do.
Some people get married a lot faster than we did, and
true.
It was the right thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's been people, we've seen those stories of like people who've gotten married within like a month, and they've been married for 60 years, right? Like it can happen. I think, again, it's one of those things that when you have that mindset, when you really know, right, and you really have submitted to that, if you're dating someone, or if you're courting someone, courting, did we court?
No, I don't know.
I don't know. Or engaged, then yeah, possibly. Like if you're in that point where like then yeah, I think so, right? Like going through pre-marriage counseling's really important. I would really highly recommend you do that. You should do it. Do it now.
And also, can I add?
Yeah.
If you are dating and you aren't in pursuit to try to figure out if this is somebody you should marry, or you've even come to the conclusion you don't think you see it,
what are you doing?
End it. What
are you doing?
You're wasting your time and their time like a nap. So just that little tidbit.
Just be loving, yeah. Some people think it's more loving, right? Because they don't want to hurt somebody. Like
you're just putting off the inevitable.
One, you're gonna hurt him, and now you're gonna hurt him more, right? Because it's like right?
Yeah. So I got to a point in my life before meeting you that I was like, I was done wasting my time. So I'm like,
I didn't waste your time.
No.
Mm-mm. You get
I wasn't gonna let
my jokes and all of my failed puns. It wasn't a pun, but I don't know. You want somebody who's going to push you to pursue God, right? Like, I think that's a big one. I think that was a big one for us too. Was like we knew we already did, and we continue to pursue or push each other, not in a positive like, hey, did you read your Bible today? How many passages did you read? Did you memorize scripture today? Like, did you do this? And like, no, I watch cat videos on YouTube all day. Leave me alone. Jeez. No, not like that, obviously, but I think it is. I mean, I think if sometimes we have those questions, and I think it's still okay to even ask that question, like clearly, like, hey, have you read the Bible in a few days? It's like, I think it is. Like, obviously, that person may be offended at first because they think you're judging them, but it's not a judgment. It's just kind of like, hey, I want to hold you accountable because I know she wants to, and I know how she feels when she gets that, and she knows how I feel when I spend time in the Word, right? So I think having someone that to pursue and challenging them.
So if that's what your relationship looks like, then yes.
Yeah.
You should pursue marriage, and you probably shouldn't put it off longer than necessary.
AKA if is it God-centered.
Yeah.
Right?
If it's God-centered, really in pursuit of God, you're growing together, you're sure you love them and you want to spend your life with them, don't wait longer than you have to.
Yeah.
I'm not saying like you got to get married next week, but don't put it off 3 more years.
Yeah.
Like, let's be realistic.
Yeah.
But I would like to talk about what it would look like if you're in a Christian relationship and you may not be ready. Okay, I would say if you're struggling with lusting after your boyfriend or your girlfriend and you're pushing just to get married or like pursuing marriage just so you can have sex with them. No.
I don't think we're supposed to say sex.
Why not?
I don't know. I'm just kidding. What else would I say?
I would say if you're seriously struggling with that, if it's like, man, if we don't get married soon, like I'm just gonna explode or something, because of those reasons, I would say like, one, definitely don't pursue marriage at that point because there's something so much deeper going on there than simply just, loving your spouse or your mate so much. I think it's a lust issue that you're struggling with, and that's a sin issue. And if you think that lusting is going to go away once you're married, it's not. So certainly if it's something that feels uncontrollable, it's something that you're really struggling with, this is something that needs to be dealt with before getting married, and you need a lot of honesty in that area. Yeah. And it's not the reason to get married. This is a great, wonderful bonus of getting married, but it is certainly not a foundational thing for marriage and should never be. So if it's really something like you can't even be with your mate without struggling with this, then you might need to separate, and that's going to have to be something you deal with God first.
I know that's hard to hear. I've talked to people who that was brought to them that they think they should, and they really fought against it. I just think that it's not going to be the issue for most people or the way to go. But I think there's going to be times I just think it makes sense. I'm so thankful that God gave us discernment for us to be able to take that break or for us to spend time apart and really work on us. We talk about it all the time. We really think if we would have just said, let's continue to work on ourselves and let's stay together and make this work. We really don't think we'd be married. We've had that conversation a lot, and I really wholeheartedly just don't think. I think we would have pushed boundaries. I think we would have we would have stepped over boundaries. We would have said hurtful things or done things just because we were in a place where we weren't healed or we weren't really in a position to really serve each other and to love each other the way that we needed to do. And I know we've had a conversation. You agree? I just don't think we'd be married.
It was the most beautiful moment. It was tough because like when you feel like you really want to be with somebody, like, and you both feel that way, like it was a mutual feeling of like we didn't really want to break up, but like God used that time that we just laid it down and surrendered it to him and said, okay, like deal with us individually. And he just built up this not that we're perfect, like, let me say that, but he just built up this woman who was ready to be a wife and built up this man who was ready to be a husband. And I mean, that's why 3 or 4 months after getting back together, like, we were engaged. Yeah. And because I think it just made sense. It was just like right after, like 2 months, I think, after getting back together, you were looking at rings. So. But
don't rush into it, guys. There's, again, the idea that we should have in getting married is that it's forever.
Yeah.
Right? Like you're picking, like, fuck, I just had in my head, you're going to a store picking out a wife. Here's a husband. I like that husband. It looks good. No, but it's forever. And we know forever. Mm-hmm. Forever. But that should be the mentality. We really should have to go into that with that, right? Like, not thinking that you're ever going to be divorced, not ever worrying about that. Now, again, there are biblically found reasons to get divorced, right? So we're not saying divorce is sin or evil, right? Like Jesus talked about it.
Not in all circumstances.
Right, yeah. So, well, I'm just saying in general. Like, there are reasons, there are biblically founded reasons for that, to understand that. But we should go into it with the mindset, obviously, is that it's going to be forever, and we want to make the right decision. So if it takes an extra, a 5-month break, right? If it takes time to go do that, trust me, 5 months may seem long in the moment, but it's not long. If you're single, right? Again, Paul talked about in 1 Corinthians, I think 7 and 8, that singleness is a gift, right? I think there's giftings to that. So don't say, I'm gonna take the summer to spend it on myself. Like, take every day, like every season, every month, and focus on Christ, right? Focus on Him and what He has for you every single day. Yeah. Not worrying about, like, well, I'm just gonna spend 3 months focusing on me, and then maybe I'll find somebody, right? Because
don't put a timestamp on it.
Yeah, because I think we just get it in our head, and then we're gonna force things that aren't there. We're gonna to go to things that aren't there. So, but it can be a gift. So, like, I know there's a lot of times in singleness, we both have probably felt it too, that it doesn't feel like a gift, right?
No, I felt that way.
But I think sometimes when we do get there, we can find that in everything, right? Like, there's a lot of people who are, the grass is greener, right? People who are like, singleness, those couples that I just wish I was with somebody. Then you're with somebody and you're like, oh, like, I wish I was just, I could do whatever I wanted to do and don't have to worry about someone else. Like, there's that grass is greener.
I'll say that, like, marriage in so many ways is so great, but for the people who just, like, look at married people and think, oh, I just wish I was a married person. I'm like, you don't know the mess of threads behind the beautiful tapestry. Like, it is work to have a good marriage, and it's worth it. It's great, and the benefits are awesome. But I mean, no, there were certain areas that were much easier when I was single. Yeah.
And I truly do believe, when Paul talked about the gift, I truly believe there are people who are called in this life to be single. Yeah. Like, I just do. And I think we got to be okay with that, even if we don't feel like we're called. I know that was a place I had to get to before we even met. I was okay with, like, not being married. I was okay, and truly believing that, and being okay with being single and devoting my time and my life to that. And understanding that, God can use that. Being married isn't anymore of a better stature. It's really, married and singleness, it's like Paul kind of described it in Corinthians as like a better best situation. You think it's better or the best to be single, but it's not bad to be married. Like, it's still a great thing, right? And it's still, God can still use your marriage to glorify Him, and He will use your marriage if you give it to Him to glorify Him. So, but yeah, I mean, first it's, if you're single, it's pursuing God, right? It's it's the best relationship you're going to have, whether you're married, whether you're single, dating, whatever it is. It should be your number one relationship. Your most important relationship should be with Jesus. And don't put your focus on your spouse, right? Like, I know you've talked about that before. It's like putting it on, like, the idea of a spouse.
Oh, yeah.
That can become an idol, right? You start idolizing the maybe even it's a certain person that you really want to date or you want to be with, and you start idolizing this relationship. You start idolizing this marriage. You start idolizing things that don't exist. But it can be, right? We can have that idea of a spouse, the idea of that relationship can become an idol, which we've obviously talked about in a previous video. Yeah, watch that. Go check it out. Yeah. can your spouse be an idol? But that's talking about your current spouse. But
yeah,
your non-existent spouse can be an idol.
We did touch on that in that video, though.
We did. Yeah. So more there. We won't go into that now.
Now this can be difficult. We get it. It's all around us. It's in our friend groups, in TV, music, movies. I mean, even go to the zoo and animals are coupling up.
Yeah.
And so
see the gorillas over there snuggling with each other. And you're like, this gorilla's got a boo.
I just want a boo too.
Yeah. can't get away from it. We get it. It can be hard, especially in our culture. It can be hard to have that desire and that want, right?
Yeah, but Jesus came to die for us. He died for you. He was resurrected from the dead, and don't you think he could handle this?
And he's not a temporary relationship,
Mm-mm.
a placeholder.
No.
Until you don't just put on in a relationship with Jesus until I find someone and then they take that place. Like, okay, Jesus, I got it. And I say that because that was me. I was literally that person who would, cry out to God, cry out to Jesus that I wanted a relationship or a certain person at some point. And then you get that relationship and then you're like, all right, I got it. Thank you.
Thanks, Jesus. See you later.
I know what I'm doing from here on out, even though I've wrecked every other relationship I've ever had. But, this time it's going to be different. It wasn't. Newsflash. But this one
is
going to be different because I'm not in charge. That's the great part. If you're someone who's always messing things up and you're always putting yourself in charge, there's good news. You don't have to be in charge.
Mm-hmm. You're also
and things go much better when you're not in charge. Trust me. So you got to be be intentional.
Mm-hmm.
So by being single, instead of focusing intended on finding the right person, be that right person, right?
Yeah.
Like focus on you. I've kind of seen that joke, or maybe it's a meme, right? Where it's like you're so focused about this, woman or man of God and all this stuff, and like you were not doing anything to work on yourself, right? Like,
yeah.
I think you can just focus on you and focus on your relationship with Christ, and I think that's where you should be when you're single. I wish I'd have spent more time in my singleness. I wish I would have waited so. Well, actually, I don't because we wouldn't be married. But,
yeah.
So I don't wish that.
It all
but I mean, yeah. So I mean, I think even if you have it, like, there's always a time to start.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and I think God is always going to bring the proper spouse when it's the right time. Mm-hmm. I mean, you don't need to stress yourself out by looking for your spouse or like stress yourself out, like, scanning the room. Is that him? Because that's how I used to be.
That can be stressful.
It is super stressful. It's why I was anxious.
Yeah.
But it just means having like peace with yourself and not pressuring yourself. And there's no time stamp of like, oh my gosh, I'm almost 30, or oh my gosh, I'm almost 35. Like, I gotta find my spouse. Mm-hmm. It's not worth rushing in, forcing something that's not God's will for your life and ending up in a relationship that's not going well, that's not centered in Him, and possibly at more risk for divorce. And so I think, you definitely want to go God's way. And like you said, some people are meant to be single. I don't want to like scare people and say I don't believe that's a ton of people that are meant to be single.
I have no idea. I just think it is a gift. I think there's people.
But there's people who are meant to be single in pursuit of Christ. Like, I mean, it's because their whole life is dedicated to Christ. But I think like some people are so scared of the thought of being single forever. And I think like if you can get to that place, the amount of peace you'll have if there's no pressure, that I'm okay if I'm single for the rest of my life because I have Christ and that's enough for me, then there's not this pressure. There's not this pressure to make, to find somebody and make it work and get married and have babies by the time I'm 35. Like, it's just, that's just so stressful.
That's the case. I'm 3 years late to that party.
Yeah, we'll have some sometime.
I mean, you're so right. I think to be looking for that and stressing out, and the thing is like when you truly pursue Christ, like when you truly pursue that relationship constantly, I mean, I'm talking about like every single day, that's not scary. It's really not. Like I remember getting to that point because it was scary for me. It was like I remember growing up, and I remember that being a scary thought. I remember that being like, oh my goodness, like am I really going to be like 40 and not married? And then when I got to the place of in my 30s and kind of going like, man, pursuing Christ, and I was like, if I never get married, I'm really truly. And I remember when I said it, like I'm okay with that, and I go, wow, I meant that. Like I really did. I remember even saying those words. I was like, I actually meant that. And I think when you do pursue that, you can get to that place where you really truly feel that way. And you may not, like for me, obviously, like I didn't live my entire life single, but I was okay with that. Mm-hmm. And I think there's getting to that point where it's okay. And then, if you're lonely, right, like get a cat.
Yes, they're the best.
Yeah.
Steal one from outside.
Not really stealing, you're saving them from this harsh 100-degree
you're
Texas
stealing
weather.
them from their cat mother.
Well,
speaking of, there's our little stolen baby.
He's happy. He's good,
happy.
So. But yeah, get a cat, get an animal maybe they're very friendly and they'll keep you company all the time. They'll sing to you sometimes too. Sometimes Mila sings to us. Mm-hmm. So there's no reason to have to get married that fast, but I think there is a truth and there's reality behind why when you see Christians get married so fast, especially when they've already had this just desire and this fire and this pursuit for God and this relationship with Christ before that, going into a relationship. It does change things, right? It changes things from how the world approaches it, and it creates a more healthy balance and intro into that marriage. But no, pursue him first. Again, not I'm gonna work on myself for a few months, or I'm gonna just worry about me. I'm gonna do me.
Don't do you. Then
he'll bring me a boo.
Don't do you. Pursue Christ.
You sound like millennials.
What do you mean?
I don't know. Their jargon.
What
are you guys talking about?
No, I think we sound old, babe. I think we sound real old.
Yeah. I sound my age. It's okay.
Yeah.
I'm not worried about it. So next week, we're going to talk about our wedding story.
Oh, I didn't even know that.
I am excited. We've talked about like how we met, but we haven't talked about like how we met's interesting, or not how we met, but our relationship has been interesting. It's been unique. It's been different than a typical, I think, relationship. Our wedding was very unique in its own way too. And by the grace of God, it was the most amazing thing ever. But there were so many things that happened.
It was interesting.
Within the first even like 48 hours of going to our wedding, and just how we came about, going to get married in Greece, and just that whole thing. So I'm excited to tell that. We haven't really told it a whole lot, just to kind of friends and family, and it's an interesting one. So I'm excited to talk about it. So we're gonna take a little break next week, really kind of from the show, and just focus on that because I think it's a fun story to tell. Yes. Okay. So we'll see. Well, I said next week. It could be in like a month, or it could be next year. I don't know. It could be in tomorrow.
Consistency. Okay.
That's
all right.
The fun of it.
We will see you next time. Well, we won't actually see you, but you'll see us next time.
Yeah, because we saw you. That'd be weird.
Yeah.
We could do a live show.
I don't want to.
Okay. See you guys later.
Bye.
Bye.